All right, so we're back, and let's pick up with sociability. So sociability is a portion of introversion, extroversion. Like people who are extroverted tend to be more sociable, but you don't have to be you don't have to be sociable to be outgoing, to be an extrovert. You might be a sociable person and introverted. You could be, so it's kind of an independent dimension, especially if you look at it through the big five lens. So sociability is, wanting to engage with other people, right? You want to, if you're female, probably talk to them. If you're female, you're probably going to want to spend time, looking at them and sharing ideas with them and things like that. If you're male, sociability looks a little different on average. I'm going to throw in on average every time, just in case you think I'm being super sexist. I'm just saying on average. Sociable male may like to engage in their hobby with someone. And there's not a lot of sitting and talking and looking at each other and like that, but they spend time together doing something that they both like. And that would be, that's sociable, right? Having somebody who you enjoy playing poker with, or shooting archery with, or going for a hike, or whatever you like to do that you would do with another person, inviting somebody to do it with you, even if you're not sharing your deepest thoughts or things like that, that is called sociability. And so males and females may look different while being sociable. Like females may go out and get a drink after work with their friends, and they sit facing each other and they share information about what's been going on in their life since the last time they shared drinks together. Males, on the other hand, might sit next to each other in a little rowboat with their fishing line out and not utter a word. And both the males and the females may come back feeling the same degree of elevation from having had this, social experience, even though they look super different. So social situations can pull out different things from us. I think it's really important that we not label one sex as this and one sex as that, and instead look at what does the behavior look like for each sex. So with nonverbal behaviors, on average, it's easier for women to detect nonverbal cues and to give out nonverbal cues. And the evolutionary theory for that is that over the course of humanity's, ancestral history, females have been the ones who reared, especially, infants who can't even talk yet. And so historically, women have had to be able to look at their little babies and figure out what their face means, what their body posture means, and try and tend to their needs. So it's possible that females have like a boost on this skill, that intrinsically they might have a leg up. But if the social situation demands nonverbal literacy, men or more masculine people who maybe don't have this as a natural approach can learn it and can invoke it. And so, for example, men who spend more time with their children get better at interpreting nonverbal cues than men who don't raise their own kids. And so they may not have the practice. So having practice is a really important thing. Men who are deaf are really good at picking up nonverbal cues because they can't hear the words that a person is saying. And so they have to look at their face and their body posture. And that's really an important, rich component of ASL communication anyway, is looking at the facial expression and the body posture. The signs that are being conveyed give you what the topic is and things like that. But the body posture and the facial expressions give you the emotional content, the meaning behind those signs. Like the same sign might mean different things based on where you're holding your arms, or whether you're leaning forward or leaning backwards, things like that. So it's clearly nonverbal behaviors can be, you can learn to be better at it depending on the situation. Influenceability or conformity. Okay, this is another one where a lot of times, because it's so common to characterize women as being more gullible, is oftentimes a word that appears on a list of characteristics of females. People think that women would be more influenceable or conformist. But it really depends on the situation for either sex, whether they would go along with the group or if they would rebel. Way back in the 50s, a guy named Solomon Asch did a series of different kinds of conformity tests where he had a group of people who all gave the wrong answer. And then we have the actual participant in the study who thinks everybody else in the group is a participant as well. But he's the last one to give his answer. Everybody else has given a wrong answer. And the question is he going to conform? So initially they just ran it with males because that's what you do when you're first doing research, is you just pick one of the sexes and you stick with it. Once they figured out that males would conform, then they said, okay, we got to put females in there. And they found out that females conformed at exactly the same rate. So, and they gave the exact same explanations for conformity. Some of them said, well, the rest of the group must be right. I must be seeing it wrong. How can they all be wrong? And I'm the only one who's right. Like, a lot of them gave that kind of informational interpretation. And then an equal number of males and females gave the other interpretation, which was, well, you know what? I just didn't want to have to endure the discomfort of everybody staring at me. So I just went along. I know they're wrong, but I just don't want to be stared at. So I conformed. In those kinds of setups, you know, we have been able to show that males and females are equally likely to conform. We can tweak things that can make it more or less likely that people will conform. So we could have, like, if you have more people ahead of you giving the wrong answer, you're more likely to conform than if you have fewer people ahead of you giving the wrong answer. If you have even one person who gives the same answer that you want to, you're going to go along with this person who agrees with you and ignore all the people who are saying the wrong thing. You're going to be like, okay, clearly I'm not the only one seeing it this way. Come on, fellow minority who's seeing it the same way as me. I'm going to give the correct answer, right? So there are factors that can affect the conformity that is displayed. The confidence that a person has in their rightness is another thing that can determine it. And in some circumstances, females tend to feel more correct about things. And in some circumstances, males may feel on average more confident. You know, females tend to feel more confident about, like, interpersonal questions or, you know, things having to do with, like, emotional reactions. And males tend to feel more comfortable or confident talking about, like, mechanical issues or distances or heights or things like that, spatial questions. And so, so while both sexes are equally conformist or influenceable, within the arena of conformity, you might see more females going along with, you know, a group of people who said that object is half a mile away, whereas a male might be like, that is not half a mile, that's like 1,000 feet if it's anything, right? Because the male feels more confident on spatial stuff. And whereas the female, she might be less likely to conform if everybody else is saying, well, I think that facial expression is conveying sadness. And she's like, no, that is surprise. What are you talking about? Because she feels confident about that. So it's really a matter of what the subject is. So different situations may elicit different kinds of behavior out of males and females. And it might correspond to our stereotypes, right? And then we go, oh, see, that's how women are and that's how men are. And in reality, you've just got to give them the proper cues for them to display that they actually do go through the same exact processes. This final thing, instrumental versus expressive behavior, I used to have a really good video for it, but Annenberg CPA pulled it down, or CPB, sorry. So we can't watch it anymore. But instrumental versus expressive behavior is referring to whether you engage in behaviors that get your goals achieved, right? Take steps towards achieving your own goals. And instrumental behaviors, on average, are associated with masculinity, right? So a person who sets goals and takes steps towards achieving those goals, a person who wants something and they make sure that it happens, that's a person who's displaying instrumentality or instrumental behavior. On average, that's been associated with masculinity. But again, I'm going to argue that depending on the situation, females can look very instrumental. I'll just give you a great example. Back at the beginning of talking about aggression and stuff like that earlier, I mentioned that almost all animals, the males are more aggressive. But there is one place where females of almost every species are more aggressive than the males in the species, and that's when they have cubs or babies, right? So if you have little ones to take care of, all of a sudden the female gets all sorts of instrumental in protecting those offspring. So the situation may pull out instrumentality on a female, instrumentality on a male. And it may be that historically the researchers have been looking at very masculine situations and saying, oh, well, see, males are more instrumental. When in fact, if you gave us a more feminine setup where females tend to be more instrumental, all of a sudden you would see them, I'll say in quotation marks, protecting their offspring, right? Or whatever it would be, that would be an example of instrumentality. So expressive behavior is referring to speaking, talking, getting your ideas out into the world. It could be partly the nonverbal behaviors also, because that can help convey meaning also. On average, women are associated with greater expressive behavior. On average, females are associated with using more words, having more words available, knowing more words, things like that. It's a stereotype that women utter more words per day than men, that women just talk more, because on average, men actually utter more words per day than women do. They've done study after study of this in real life situations where they literally count how many words are uttered. And on average, men utter more words per day than women. Nevertheless, I think the thing is women are much more expressive. They're more likely to use words to achieve their goals, things like that, than males are. Males may use their instrumental bodies to get stuff done more often, and females may use their expressive behavior to get things done more often. So that brings us to another brain games video, and this one is awesome. So go ahead and check it out, and then we will come back and talk about it on the other side.